Welcome. My name is Lynne. I'm director of the Kidsbridge Youth Center and author of The Empathy Advantage, coaching your children to be kind, respectful, and successful. And as you know, we have guests here, people who are giving back. And I'm just thrilled today to have the very busy Michele Siekerka. Welcome, Michele.
Great to be with you, Lynne.
CEO of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. And so I know you're all over the state. Thanks for coming in today.
Oh, it's so great to spend some time with you today. Absolutely.
So tell me about NJBIA, what you do, and then we're going to try to intersect what you do with empathy.
Well, I don't think that'll be difficult to do, okay? But NJBIA, we are a business association. We advocate tirelessly on behalf of New Jersey business for an affordable and regionally competitive business climate here in the state of New Jersey. And within that is all about sustainability of our economy, and therein comes the intersection. And I will say, why I say I don't think it's a big jump, because great businesses make great communities. So think
Excellent.
Think about the people who run our Main Street businesses to our largest corporations. They're folks who go home each and every day and take off their work clothes, right, and put on their community clothes and do things like coach the softball and the baseball, take up the collections at the church, the synagogue, give back, the downtown fireworks, the potluck dinners. Who does all that? Business people do it.
How many members do you have?
8,000 businesses, and we represent just under 1 million jobs across the state of New Jersey. Everyone from the corner pizzeria to the 1,000-employee call center to the biggest utilities and hospitals in the state of New Jersey.
Interesting. So I've always wondered how many small, how many medium, how many large, because I think people tend to think about large, but you and I have had conversations in the past month about small businesses and how NJBIA wants to help small businesses as well.
Yeah. So the sweet spot of our membership actually is 50 employees or less, about 80% of the membership. And of that, a large majority are 25 or less. Yeah, so we really are the voice of small business while we represent the market share of those large corporations as well. So my heart is and always was in Main Street and the small business, the entrepreneur, innovation, and again, that intersection of how we support community is a really easy connection.
That's really interesting, yeah. Thinking about these people, what they do, not that anyone works 9 to 5 today, but giving back to the communities all over New Jersey.
Well, and the plight of the small business has become increasingly challenged over the past couple of years. I mean, New Jersey businesses have literally held on by their nails, to keep their businesses open. You can go up and down main streets all across the state and you can feel in your heart the challenges, the workforce challenges we have today, on top of the economic challenges. And now you have, inflation, increased fuel costs, so many demands. Right, Lynn, we said earlier, we wake up each and every day. I don't want to listen to the news to say, what's the next big thing that you're going to throw on society that we have to deal with,
right. So through the lens of empathy, before we talk about community service and giving back, walking in the shoes of a small business owner, I'd like people to do that. What is that like today? Again, especially COVID makes it hanging on by the nails. Like let's walk in the shoes of a small business owner. And can we help? Like in my family, we tried to patronize the mom and pops. Let's talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. During COVID, the biggest thing we could have done when they were shut down for people coming in, all these businesses had to reconfigure and reinvent and rethink their business model. How do I create a delivery mechanism now? How do I get the product to my consumer if they can't come into my place of business? And then to that end, I know, we, my husband and I, we were consistently once a week or twice a week ordering out from the local restaurant.
Wonderful.
So that we could keep them thriving and throwing a little bit more money in the tip jar because those who were working, they were a limited workforce at the time, and they were the ones really at the front line. And so empathy really was showing that you care. And I will say it's very ironic because people who hear me speak hear me consistently use the term boots on the ground. You have to be walking in the shoes of those that you were trying to speak for and speak up for. And when we are the boots on the ground, we understand what it means to be in the place of that person and what their needs and challenges and opportunities are so that we can best convey how we help them.
So boots on the ground, I can also use the word upstander.
Absolutely.
Somebody who stands up and speaks out. And I want to stay with this a little bit because I want listeners to support local businesses other than the restaurant because they can really use the support as COVID is lingering on, unfortunately. How can people listening help small businesses? Are there a few things that people can do?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, think about, if you want to sit in the boots, walk in the boots, right? Think about the personal commitment that a small business owner has made. And what I like to say, especially when we're lobbying in Trenton on behalf of small business, right? They're people just like us. Every dollar they have is maybe $1 more than those that they're paying. We're not talking about rich people, all right? We're talking about people who've made a major investment in something that's personal to them. And we have to think about that. That's so important. And you see that in their products and services. And you see the care that they put into their product and service, right? And at the end of the day, I always say, remember, they also don't have a back office who's doing all the support things that a larger company may have. Not only am I making my product or delivering my service, right? The accounts payable, the accounts receivable. I'm changing the light bulb. I'm unlocking and locking the door. I'm responsible for the security call that comes 2 o'clock in the morning. It's 24/7, and it's so personal that you can't find a distinction of black and white between, when a small business owner is on or off, because it's intrinsic in who they are as a person, and it's part of their life. It's in their DNA.
Right, 24/7.
Absolutely.
Right. So hopefully people will be there, don't order online, go support New Jersey's local businesses.
We understand convenience at a moment in time, but when you have the opportunity to go and frequent a small business in your community
Storefront.
For a product, I'll give you a great example. It's summertime, right?
Yeah.
Everybody maybe needed a new beach chair. We are fortunate enough to have a nice house down at the shore that we can enjoy with our family, right? So Neil wanted a new beach chair that had that little hoodie thing that would go over the top, right, to keep the sun out of his eyes, right?
Yes.
So immediately, because we have Amazon Prime, everybody does, I said, stop right there. I said, we're going to go walk in our shore town, and we're going to go to that nice general store, and we're going to see if they have that chair. And Neil literally said to the owner, my wife insisted that I come here and look at what you have first before I went online. And so if we would just stop to think about that, take the time.
I love that story.
Well, and you appreciate the experience too. We all got to get back out and about in our community.
Right. And a relationship with that store owner and that person instead of this anonymous. I'm so supportive of what you just said.
Who doesn't want to say hi to your local pizza guy, right? Who doesn't want to walk into your downtown store and say, hey, Joe, hi, Mary, how's it going, right? It makes your connection to your product and service even more special.
Right. So because I do Kidsbridge and I'm the director, very concerning is the research now that talks about face-to-face skills diminishing, interpersonal skills diminishing. And so this is affecting preschoolers up to our high schoolers and college kids, that they are not able to express themselves as well. And I've read even that for employers, and you can relate to this, that our students and kids don't know how to have a conversation. Teachers are noticing this.
Yes.
So let's just explore that quickly. The impact before COVID on social emotional skills. This is something that parents and teachers and employers need to be mindful of. We need to step up these skills.
Absolutely. And it takes both sides. All right. I'm going to tell you a quick story. It was during COVID in 2020, and I was speaking online virtually with a peer leadership group at a school in Mercer County.
Wonderful.
So peer leadership, these are graduating seniors at the top of their class. Okay, so these kids are the cream of the crop. They're explaining to me, knowing what I do, they're saying, Ms. Siekerka, could you please make sure that our future employers understand that we've had a gap, and that when we come out to the workforce, they're going to have to be a little more patient with us. And we're nervous about that. Okay, now that's the cream of the crop kids recognizing that they're experiencing a gap. Take that all the way down. The social emotional is extraordinary, and we need to do whatever we can to support the students coming up. And we need to be, as employers, empathetic and understanding and say, what can we do to help them from our vantage point? Right? And then in our schools, make sure that our curriculum is recognizing that, and that we have support systems around it, and programs such as Kidsbridge are a great extracurricular around that, right?
So we, Kidsbridge, all about putting the phones down. We don't use media to inculcate empathy and help the kids. Always looking for actionable tips for our listeners, that whether you're a parent or a teacher or a grandparent, less media, put the phones down. When you have a face-to-face conversation with someone, a child, a teen, a college student, it's a gift, right? Because they're not having enough of that, especially during the COVID, where we have increasing isolation, anxiety, and stress and trauma. So we're asking people listening face-to-face conversations.
I think it's so critical, especially when you talk about students, preteen and teen, right? It is so easy, unfortunately, to say something mean on a phone or social media. How many times have we seen it?
Cyberbullying's getting worse.
And whether it's intentional or not, because unfortunately, you may not mean to be mean when you're sending a message, but the perception on the other side is being received in a certain way.
Right.
Okay.
And promulgated and copied and sent out.
Absolutely.
And permanent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can't once you hit that send button, you can't take that back. And now the damage has been done, and how do you remediate that damage, right? And so getting the social media and getting the technology where it needs to be on the side and going back to one-on-one relationship, it's much harder to be mean to someone when you're having a face-to-face discussion.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And you have to stop and think about, and the other thing is you can see the reaction of the person you're talking to, and you can start to adjust yourself, and you could say, oh, I was coming off a little too strong there, let me back up a little, right?
Yeah.
Or they're not quite getting my point, let me clarify. You can't do that. You can't do that in technology and social media.
You know, I'm thinking of other analogies, Kidsbridge educating students and the workplace. So when I do webinars with my staff about bullying and trying to help, coach parents and teachers in bullying, and I'm talking about educating youth to not be mean, not to be, the word, instead of labeling someone bully, we say those who bully. But inevitably, when I do these webinars, the questions I get are about bullying in the workplace or bullying in the home. So I wonder whether NJBIA is addressing this, if this is an issue for you, because with more empathy, bullying would diminish, which is why I think empathy is the lens we all need. Does that come across your desk or your work?
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So I talked about what we do by way of advocacy, right? And of course, there's a whole policy discussion we could have, right? But separate from that, we put on a lot of programs, and we have a lot of support and resources for businesses. Remember, small business doesn't have the back room. They don't have the HR support.
Of course.
So we step in with the HR platform for them, and a big part of that is culture, good leadership, social emotional intelligence. These are all issues. We have a webinar today that actually I'm going to join after this to listen on how the brain creates a listening leader.
Ooh.
All right, so we are absolutely in this space because it's significantly important that people in the workplace recognize their need to have empathy and have a good culture around empathy, especially today.
Wonderful. I didn't realize that. So that's something everybody can use, any company, any person.
It's a lifelong,
kid,
behavior, right? A lifelong behavior.
So let's pivot to the Siekerka family.
I love them.
A lot of empathy for the Siekerka family. So you and your family have been a part of the Kidsbridge family for a long time, and here to announce that your family is receiving the honor to be honored and regaled at the 15th Annual Kidsbridge Humanitarian Celebration. It's on October 19th, I think, at the Stone Terrace, and I know you'll be there.
We will.
With your entire family. So let's talk about your relationship with Kidsbridge, which would be a relationship with empathy. Can you go through your family,
Sure.
the gestalt of your family,
Absolutely.
and talk about your fabulous children and your fabulous husband? I can talk about the fabulous you later, but I think the foundation of your family, empathy, community service, giving back. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's great. First of all, thank you. Thank you so much. A real privilege and an honor, especially from an organization like Kidsbridge and what you mean and the connectivity we've had. It's extraordinary. I go back, Neil and I are high school sweethearts. So we know each other since I'm about 16.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we've been together a long time,
That's
and
so
nice. It's great. And I have really fond memories of he and I doing community service together
In high school.
Yeah, in high
Starts
school.
early.
Starts
Excellent.
early,
Yeah.
absolutely. Carried that up through our college years, and then of course, we have Brian and Caitlin, our twins, who are now 30. I'll embarrass them a little bit, okay, right? But it was in the family DNA, and have extremely fond memories of the four of us on whatever cause walk was going on at Mercer County Park, with Neil and I in the little Tykes wagon with Brian and Caitlin in it, right? And many of those walks, Heart Association, juvenile diabetes, Red Cross, whatever it was, the kids we'd have our family shirts, right? And it's so funny, the one I have a very vivid memory of, and this was years, and I was at law firm at the time, it was Needell and McGlone. And we had matching shirts. And for about 3 years, we did that same walk, and we all have the matching shirts from each 3 years. Brian still has those shirts.
Aww.
Unbelievable, right? Whereas like his night shirts, like, it's a Needell and McGlone, shirt from one of our walks.
What a memory.
What a memory. It's awesome, right?
That's beautiful.
Absolutely. And so now how does that carry forward? Well, first of all, Neil. Let's talk about Neil, okay, who has been involved with the rescue mission for over 20 years. And has been the chair of the board for about 15 years now.
Amazing.
And we know what an incredible organization the Rescue Mission is and what they do, particularly.
So can you address that? Because our viewers may not know
Sure.
how fabulous the Rescue Mission is. What do they do?
Absolutely. So they are there particularly to help men who have drug addiction issues, who are literally brought through drug court to them for rehabilitation. So they have a shelter where at night both men and women, and sadly with children time, line up about 4 o'clock every day to have a place to sleep at night and a warm meal.
And they do meals also. Yeah.
They do meals, exactly,
yeah.
and a warm meal, right? However, in the morning, everyone gets kicked out purposely to go serve a mission on the street, to go find purpose, right? But then there's all the wraparound programs there too, the education and workforce development opportunities and the
Right.
training that takes place,
Right.
okay? And then there's also a bridge to permanent housing through there for people and to help them. And so literally from the drug courts,
Yeah.
hopefully to the rehabilitation, back to the family, and the streets in a good way to give back to
Right.
society.
And don't forget the thrift store.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%, which is so important.
Yeah,
So important.
I go down to Trenton and drop stuff off, and it's very rewarding.
Absolutely. And like you, right, Mary Gay is an incredible female leader in our community.
Yes.
And what people like you and Mary Gay do for the good of this community is extraordinary and can't be understated.
She is the Energizer Bunny.
Absolutely. And you talk about family DNA. Take it to Barrett, who runs the mission now.
Beautiful.
Extraordinary. Her son, who again
right.
embedded in the family DNA to
Right.
give back.
Starts young on that little Tykes wagon.
Absolutely,
All
absolutely.
right. So
right?
Neil, extraordinary
Absolutely.
giving back. Let's
Absolutely.
talk about your kids,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
No, always. So Brian and Caitlin, you think about what they carried from that little Tykes wagon, right, through their elementary and high school. They were both involved in Early Act in grammar school, which is
What's
Rotary.
that?
Rotary at the
Oh, right.
K8. Yes.
Right,
And
ACT.
carried that up. So that was community service, really starting in about 3rd or 4th grade.
Wow.
And actually, they were part of the inaugural club for Robbinsville, which was great. And then in high school, they were both gay straight allies, which goes right to empathy once again.
Beautiful.
Okay, they were part of the club there. There were some issues for a couple of years in the school that they were part of. Caitlin was involved with Lead for Diversity. So the two of them have a lot of commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is extraordinary. Brian, a musician, always wanted to give back musically to the next generation as well. But everything about them culminates in who they are today. Caitlin is a mental health therapist, every day helping people, right, to deal with mental health challenges.
Tough job.
Talks about who she is. You know that well. That's right. She's right in your ilk, and so proud of the time she spent working with you at Kidsbridge. Fond memories Caitlin has of her time as a docent in the museum, and she learned so much from you. You were an incredible mentor to her.
So before she was a docent, I don't know if you remember, she came with her girlfriend,
Yes.
Caitlin.
Yes.
and worked and volunteered in the office. That's how it started,
Yes.
and that was a few years.
Yes.
And
she was out at your outdoor programs
Right,
did some
right.
projects at home.
Yeah,
So I remember
she did a
seeing
lot.
the Kidsbridge box at home where she was doing stuff, right?
Right. She
Absolutely.
took work home, I remember.
Exactly.
And then, I shouldn't be surprised, we trained her to be a docent. She worked with kids. She loves kids.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm not surprised she's doing what from early, that you started her from the Tykes-Wack and onward, learning to give back.
Yes.
So.
And we were all about giving back, and Brian does that today in his role as a medical assistant in an urgent care facility. And in the peak of COVID, you talk about the front line, and there he was, overtime tirelessly. And you think about that frontline workforce. I couldn't be more proud. Both of them frontline workers during COVID. Caitlin on the mental side, Brian on the physical side. Couldn't be more proud of Brian and Caitlin.
You did good, and that's why we're honoring the whole family, because you really are exemplar, and I think an inspiration to other people and families out there.
It's great to see the inspiration that they create today. It's great to see that next generation giving back, and being a fabric of the community is so important.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. So let's visit empathy now. So the way in my book, which you're familiar with, starting with self-empathy, we can talk about that. Self-compassion, a lot of people broken before COVID.
Sure.
Trauma, stress, anxiety. In New Jersey's urban cities, the ACE scores, adverse childhood experiences. So that's how I'm recommending people start. Before you can help others, you have to help yourself, of course. Yes. And then on top of that, the next step could be empathy for others. And then the final step, and you exemplify this, is acting, right? It's not enough, like, we educate youth. So a child who is bullying, or a child who is bullied or excluded or name-calling or cyberbullying, that you need to take care of yourself first and then to take care of others. But to feel empathy for others and not take action doesn't advance us as a society or a culture. Can you speak a little bit about that scaffolding of just yourself personally or your family, empathy for others, not enough, do something, do one little thing? I think a lot of people are intimidated. They don't know what to do. I mean, you can write a check for $20, $25. You can, what are the one simple little things maybe you did as a family, or you see others doing, or maybe NJBIA is doing a lot of these little things because you and I are distressed by what's going on in the world today in the
Sure.
news, and we've talked about that. But I want people to feel empowered to do one little thing or a couple little things. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can't, we're not here to save the planet. I mean, we do want to save the planet. I don't have the power to, help whales to, where do we start with these one little steps?
Control what you can control. Right? As we were walking in, I said, by nature, I'm a fixer. I'm an attorney by trade. I was always about helping people.
Fix it.
If I could have raised my family as being the street lawyer, I would have done it, right? But I always had my pro bono work that I did along the way at the same time. But control what you can control, and don't make yourself nuts about what you can't. When you're a fixer, it's very difficult to acknowledge and recognize, I can't fix that. But what can I do to help those who are impacted by that which can't be fixed, okay?
Right.
And then step back from there. So I think the first thing is definitely self-awareness. Because I think as society, we don't take the time for self-awareness. We haven't been taught to be self-aware. The whole concept of unconscious bias. I would encourage everybody, and I know that is totally rose-colored glasses, but anybody who wants to take a self-awareness journey should take a lesson in unconscious bias. It is extremely eye-opening, because we think it's really easy to say, I'm not biased. And then you do one of those exercises in unconscious bias, and it brings you self-awareness about how you are unconsciously biased. Doesn't make you a bad person. It's who we are by nature, and it's how we're brought up, right? And to understand that while our life may be difficult, we still have certain privileges that we never recognized was a privilege before. And then what do we do with that privilege? And then how do we address where we might come up a little short on something we never recognized could be a slight little flaw in our personality in terms of being empathetic to someone else, right? So that's one thing we can do for ourselves. I think self-awareness, and especially today, take your own time out, because you'll really be, I know personal growth. I've gone through this journey, this self-awareness journey over now it's probably about the last 10 years. And I will tell you, the initial start was with the YWCA of Trenton, where I sat on the board. And we did a retreat, and it's the first time that there were certain things that were discussed in a way that was so raw that brought tears to my eyes. And I had certain awakenings that I never thought about before.
Interesting.
And I took that home and shared that and had discussions around that, right?
With your family?
With my family.
Wonderful.
And in particular, I go back to Caitlin, because Caitlin has always just had this need and deep desire to help others. I always told her she was a little bit of a sponge. And she'd always have to, like, once a week wring out the sponge because she took on everybody's water, right?
Oh,
so she could renew herself for the next round.
Right.
And I had a discussion with my husband about it, too, because I wanted to make sure that what I was feeling, I was so moved by it that I actually said, I want you to stop and think about this with me, and let's talk about it. And Brian, the four of us, in fact, talked about it probably over dinner, okay? That's how moving it was to me. So that self-awareness is really important. You know, the other part is go lean into something that you see. If there's something bothering you, again, don't try to eat the elephant, but you can take one bite. And bite after bite after bite does start to break down the elephant. And I've learned that slow and steady wins the race, and persistence is important. And if you keep at something, maybe you take, one step forward and there might be 2 steps back, but for every 1 step forward, you're continuing to advance something. So don't be overwhelmed by trying to conquer the earth in one shot, right? Say, what one little thing in my community, in my backyard can I do that may have some snowball effect to 2 or 3 other things? And then I told someone, and they told someone, and so on and so on. Create your own network of people who share a passion for a certain something and bring them into maybe your giving circle. Could be a way of looking at it.
I love that. One adage I like is that in the work both of us are doing, we surround ourselves with good people, and it's the good people who are giving back. But I want other people to join us with these little things, and people who are giving back have such positive, wonderful energy to give back. It reminds me of the work we're doing at Kidsbridge, where we're repairing ourselves as adults. Why can't we do this as children? So Kidsbridge is focusing now on, other than the bullying prevention and the anti-bias, anti-racism, which we've been doing for 15 years, we used to call it diversity appreciation, is in reading the research, the sense of hopelessness and the lack of agency. So we're starting with these discussions, and this applies to adults as well, personal strengths, right? We're not all good at everything. We can't all, go out there and save the earth or our community, but if we feel, I can identify one good thing about ourselves. And kids have a hard time doing this. I don't know if that surprises you and our listeners, but what are you good at? I'm good at, math, chemistry. No. That's not what we're talking about. Are you a good team player? Are you resilient? Are you persistent? Those qualities that we have these conversations with kids from a very young age, that they feel that they are worth something and that they have some hope for the future.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think forever, I'll go back to my own, youth and adolescence. I mean, I lacked confidence. A young teenage girl coming up in Hudson County, it takes a lot to build confidence, especially for young girls, right? They need those support mechanisms and those programs to help them come along. And I think that we can be a part of going back and contributing to that at a young age, and then they'll be more confident as they grow. But I think it's important in adults as well, when we talk about soft skills. The building of a foundation of good soft skills is what makes you employable in the future, right? The ability to be resilient, the ability to pivot, to be multitask, to understand, to lean, and to have social and emotional intelligence is important. And if we can build that in our youth, they'll bring it straight up.
Amen. So sadly, Michele, we have run out of time.
We've come to an end.
We could talk for another hour. So I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. And thank you for joining us for another episode of Empathy in Action. So lucky to have Michele with us here today. Signing off, Lynne, Director of Kidsbridge, and hopefully you were inspired by our conversation. Do one little thing to give back to the community. Empathy in Action. Thanks for joining us today. Be well and be well. Bye-bye.